Okay, good evening. I'm Rob Antio from MassDOT. I'm the PM for the project being presented tonight. I want to start off by thanking Mayor Cahill for allowing us to present tonight. Mayor, would you like an opportunity to say hello? Sure.
Thanks everybody for coming in. I just want to quickly, just thank our partners at the state. This has been a slog and nobody likes any of it. But I will tell you that the team at MassDOT, their consultants from VHB, and they're partnering with all the various state and federal agencies. You'll see in the update, but there's a lot of work that's been done and things are progressing on both the temporary bridge and on the permanent replacements on both bridges. As well as the last thing you'll hear is an update on work that they've been doing and are going to continue to do on the Kernwood to make sure the Kernwood lasts until we have a temporary bridge over the Bass River so that they can take the old Kernwood and the old HALL-WHITAKER down to make the, to build the permanent replacements on both. So there's a lot of moving pieces, and that's all I'm going to say right now. Except to acknowledge our local elected officials and state. I don't know if Senator Lovesley's here yet. She texted me to say she was at the State House and leaving, so I think that if she's not here, she'll be here in a few minutes. Could local and other state and federal officials stand so I can just make sure I acknowledge you? And so I'll go first City Council. Our City Councilors, Danielle Spang, Brendan Sweeney, Steve Crowley, Todd Rotundo, Hannah Bowen. Okay, thank you all. Somebody's here from Congressman's office, right? Was it Liam? Liam is with Congressman Moulton's office. He's his transportation person. Thanks for being here. And so, okay, so I guess that's it. Again, thanks so much for being here. Lots for them to share, and then there'll be plenty of opportunity for Q&A and for sharing thoughts as well. So let me turn it back. Rob is the project manager for MassDOT. Nick Shenna is the consultant with VHB, who's leading their work on it. Paul Stedman, I think you've got something to say later. Paul is the district director for Mass Department of Transportation for this part of the state. We work with him all the time on all kinds of local roads and state roads in Beverly. So let me turn it back to Rob and we'll get started. Thanks.
Great, thanks a lot, Mayor. Take that mic from you. So that was a great introduction, but I'm going to start from the top. I'm here to present an update for the HALL-WHITAKER and Kernwood Avenue Bridge project, both the replacement of those bridges, the temp bridge, and the maintenance project that's going on at the Kernwood Avenue Bridge. Just quickly, I'll show you the notice with MassDOT policy on diversity and civil rights. This slide shows the public outreach for this meeting. This meeting was advertised in all of the publications you see listed, and we spread flyers throughout the community. Introduce a few folks that are here tonight to support the meeting. Of course, the mayor who just spoke. I'm Rob Antio. I'm the project manager for MassDOT. Paul Stedman was already introduced. John Lee is here with Paul. He's the District 4 bridge engineer. We have Nick Shenna, the design manager, and he brought along Holly Palmgren, who's the environmental scientist from VHB, and Christine Triakis, who's the traffic engineer from VHB. I'm not sure if there's any representatives from SPS New England here tonight, but they're the contractor handling the maintenance of the Kernwood Avenue Bridge. We also have Howard Stein Hudson here supporting that, and we have a stenographer here tonight, Rebecca Barron from Advanced Court Reporting LLC. So just to quickly go over our agenda, even though the mayor kind of blew through that pretty accurately, we're going to go over our objective, the temporary HALL-WHITAKER bridge update, the permanent bridge updates, Kernwood Avenue construction update for the maintenance project, and then we'll have some questions and answers. So just to revisit our program objective, it's one program, two bridges. We want to restore vehicular traffic to Bridge Street. Currently, there's only bikes and pedestrians that are crossing that bridge. It still opens for Mariner traffic, but while we continue maintenance on the rehabilitation of the Kernwood Avenue Bridge, we'll be progressing that, as well as the full bridge replacement of both the HALL-WHITAKER and Kernwood Avenue Bridge, and we want to deliver this program in the safest and most efficient method possible. So the HALL-WHITAKER temporary bridge update. I'm going to run through the staging and permitting approaches that we made some changes that made things a little more simplified. Regulatory agency approval status, schedule update, and the construction sequence. So this slide shows some staging and permitting approach changes, or it's the beginning of that conversation. I just want to start with the fact that we added an early utility contract that allowed us to move all the utilities off the bridge. I think that's actually already completed at this point. Everything that needs to be out of the way to allow us to begin construction as soon as the contractor is on board for the temporary bridge has been moved out of the way. There is a phase 2, but none of that will slow down the progress of building the bridge. There was some foundation and superstructure changes, and these all minimized resource impacts. So what was this design change and why? So some of the challenges we were facing with the original design, which was a filled section, you can see that square section on the west side of the bridge. It looks like a platform. That was a filled section. So we were filling in mud flats, and that was impacts to the resource area, and that required some really complex permitting. So VHB came up with another approach. They are going to install that platform on piles, and some of the benefits of doing that is minimizing those impacts to the resource area, simplifying permitting process, and that reduces some of the construction risk. So regulatory agency approval status. At this point in time, we have all the permits we need to construct the temporary bridge. This was a major collaboration, as the mayor said, between the mayor's office, the governor's office, MassDOT, all the state and federal agencies, and we were able to expedite this in a fairly quick manner. One thing that happened was the Coast Guard denied our advanced approval, so we do not have the Coast Guard permit. That's one permit that is still outstanding. We have to go through the regular full bridge permit process. That will not slow down the advertisement of the project. Right now it is under review, and we're confident that we'll have that in time for our notice to proceed. And with that Coast Guard permit will come the NEPA categorical exclusion, also known as the CE, that will come at the same time. So just want to further emphasize some of the benefits of the collaboration that we've been talking about that helped expedite the permitting. Not only that, but simplified it, and we got some really great benefits that are going to help advance construction a little more simply and quickly, and I can run through those. NOAA EFH conservation recommendations. So the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, issued conservation recommendations, CRs, for work in water in the Bass River. This is essentially controls and best management practices specified or intended to avoid, minimize, mitigate adverse effects to essential fish habitat, so EFH, and protected species. So some of these conservation recommendations and best management practices that were issued for the temporary Bridge construction, typical for similar construction. The CRs and BMPs issued for the temporary bridge construction are less restrictive, so this is the great benefit. They're less restrictive than anticipated. They allow for in-water work during the time of year restrictions that we thought we were originally going to get, and they require a less restrictive time of year restriction window. So there is really no restriction in the spring, which we thought we were going to get. And in the fall, it's very limited, and with some of these CRs and BMPs, we really won't be slowed down at all by these time of year restrictions. So just to update the schedule, going back to when we were last here for our last public information meeting, last spring, April to July 2024, we received a 75% highway bridge design submission that was reviewed and approved. Right-of-way was approved. Then in the summertime, we finalized and submitted all our environmental permits, applications that is, completed additional borings at Bridge Street that we needed. Then in the fall, leading at the end of the year, we finalized our 100% design. That was approved, and the right-of-way plans advanced as well. And now here we are in January. We have our final PS&E submission. We just got the very final today. So we'll be finalizing bid documents. I think we were last here saying that we were going to advertise in the spring of 2025. We're really happy to say tonight that we're advertising February 22nd of 2025. So all our final environmental permits, like I said, are just about done, and we're just still waiting for that Coast Guard permit. But it won't slow things down. At this point, I'm going to turn things over to Nick from VHB, and he's going to describe the construction sequence and how we're going to build this temporary bridge. Nick?
Thank you, Rob. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, elected officials, local citizens. So our design is essentially complete at this point, and we're finalizing what we call our contract time determination, or otherwise CTD. It's a construction schedule and a sequence of activities that gives us a level of confidence that we can construct the project and how long it's going to take to construct the project so that we can include that duration in our contract with our awarded contractor. So I just want to talk through some of the sequence. The top of the slide here is the existing plan. This is what we basically started with. The orange indicates the existing bridge out of service. Ryleside neighborhood is on the left of the screen here. The car wash, Moynihan parking lot in downtown Beverly on the right of the screen here. The arrows indicate pedestrian access. So we are maintaining pedestrian access up until our utility contract. So as Rob mentioned, we took our first phase of utilities, which is shown here, phase 1 by others, and created a separate contract in advance of the bridge contract. That would allow us to do all of our third-party utility coordinating and relocations ahead of the bridge construction contract. That mitigates schedule risk as well as coordination risk with the utilities. That work is ongoing right now. Simultaneously, MassDOT has undertaken the rehabilitation of the northern sidewalk. So that's why that northern sidewalk is out of service. The deck is heaved, and that's being completed as part of one of their maintenance contracts. With the early utility contract, looking at the right here, this is a section of the bridge. We're going to relocate the overhead utility lines from the south to the north. We're also going to relocate the underground and actually submarine cables. So on the right here is a city fiber line that will be relocated with the National Grid overhead. The Verizon is being rerouted to a different service that stops short of the bridge. These lines will be abandoned in place. There's also a city fire alarm that will also be relocated from submarine to overhead. That will set us up for the temporary bridge construction project. So looking here, this is a rendering of the existing bridge. You can see here the utilities on the south side. Here you can see a shot looking from from the Moynihan and car wash side towards the bridge, showing all the overhead utilities and the crossings. The idea is that we will move all of these out of the way under this early utility contract from the south to the north of the bridge. That allows us to start construction on the south side for the temporary bridge, where it will come out, around, and then back in. Going back to our plan views, again, Ryle side on the left, downtown on the right. Our construction sequence is such that, as Rob mentioned, we have a platform. We're calling it our approach span. This is supported on piles. The intent is that this becomes a staging area for the temporary bridge construction. So while we're constructing on the left or on the west, we're also constructing on the east a retained fill section. And we work in from outside in. So on the next phase, we'll start constructing from there. We'll reach in over the water, and we'll start construction of our abutments and our piers, which are supported on piles down to rock. And then we'll continue that and then continue to work on the inside. The project is permitted such that we have the ability to work from barges and from land. Once the substructure is installed, the substructure being the piers, the abutments, we'll start construction. We'll complete the construction of our platform. This includes a concrete cast-in-place deck. And then from there, we'll start construction of our panel bridge, our prefabricated panel bridge. It comes in sections of 4 to 12 feet. You'll see a rendering of one of them on the next slide. It's built in sections. And as we build it, we launch it on rollers. So we essentially cantilever it out over the crossing with a back span of counterweight. Another method that is possible is using an assist crane either from the land or from the water to counter that load as well. And we build and launch, build and launch, build and launch until we have completely crossed the river. This is a rendering from Acro of a similar application, just to enable to show the panel bridge and how it's built and then launched out, cantilevering over the feature that's crossed. Once the bridge is launched and in place, a temporary bridge, contractor may elect to then go and place all the deck panels, prefabricated deck panels, and the sidewalk as well. The sidewalk will be a cantilevered sidewalk. At that time, we'll also relocate the overhead wires that we moved from the south to the north from overhead. Sorry, I can't really see the screen right there. From overhead to under the bridge. And that's where they'll stay during the demolition of the existing bridge once the temporary bridge is open to pedestrians, vehicular traffic, and bicycle traffic. That'll also clear the way for the construction of the permanent bridge. At the completion of the temporary bridge contract, we will have all utilities relocated, we will have the temporary bridge in place, and we will have the existing HALL-WHITAKER Bridge demolished, a rendering shown on the bottom left of the configuration, one travel lane in each direction, one bicycle lane in each direction, and a sidewalk shown here on the south side, far away from, the furthest away possible from the proposed construction of the permanent bridge.
Thanks for that great explanation, Nick. So that's the update for the temporary bridge. We're going to move on to the update for the permanent bridge design. I'll go over the schedule update, bridge design development summary, regulatory agency approval process, and next steps. So permanent bridge schedule update. Last April, we received a Bridge Street Bridge Type Selection Worksheet submission. That submission was reviewed and approved. We also got the Kernwood Avenue Bridge Type Selection Worksheet submission, and that was reviewed. The Bridge Street pre-25% design was submitted in June. That was reviewed and approved. Kernwood worksheet, Bridge Type Selection Worksheet was approved in August. And then September, Kernwood pre-25% design submission was reviewed and approved. This fall, leading through the winter, we completed a geophysical survey at both locations. Kernwood Avenue design program was started, and I think it's not completed yet. I believe it's still ongoing. And the 25% highway and bridge design development continued, and I can say that we're expecting to get the 25% design submission in March. So some of the basis for the design for both bridges. We're going to maintain existing navigational channel location. We'll maintain the horizontal clearance, but our goal is to increase the vertical clearance in the closed position for both bridges. This will minimize openings and maximize the size of the vessels that can travel beneath the bridge without opening the bridge. Of course, that would be a great benefit to traffic. Anytime you minimize the openings, then you don't have to disrupt the vehicle traffic going over the bridge. So movable single span over the channel supported on deep foundations. That's our targeted design with a bridge type that's going to be a single leaf rolling bascule. So rather than a swing bridge like they are today, it'll just be one leaf that goes up and down. The fixed approach spans will be supported on deep foundations, and both bridges will be replaced on the existing alignments. This is to minimize the resource area and right-of-way impacts. This is just to show the current alignment at Kernwood, and we're going to be replacing it in the same location. You can see that it's surrounded by various resource areas, salt marsh, tidal flats, Article 97 land, so there's a lot of permitting involved with this bridge, which leads us perfectly into what we think the schedule is going to be for the permitting. This is a very similar list as the one that I showed earlier for the temporary bridge. The only thing is a lot of those didn't necessarily apply. This one will be much more complicated. There's a lot more impacts. You could see that we've started already on this, and it's going to influence our design. We're going to design to minimize the permitting as much as possible. A couple of major permitting issues with this one is Article 97 land that requires a change in legislation, as well as impacts to 6F. So we've already started working with the OEA on the 6F permitting application, and that also involves national parks, so it's also on a federal level. So this timeline is meant to show how we're doing in parallel on both bridges. So next steps, currently highway design, right-of-way design, geotech, hydraulics, sketch plans, early environmental coordination. That's been ongoing all fall leading through the winter. We've had early environmental coordination meetings already. So like I said earlier, our goal is to get that submission in from VHB in March of 2025, followed by a public hearing sometime in late summer or early fall this year. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Paul Stedman from District 4, and he's going to give us an update for the Kernwood Avenue maintenance project.
Thanks, Rob. Good evening again, Paul Stedman, District 4 Highway Director. Just want to go through a quick update on the active construction that many of you have seen and witnessed if you traveled in and around the Kernwood Drawbridge. I do want to recognize some folks. We do have representatives from SPS New England here, as well as Hardesty and Hanover H&H, who are our design consultant on the project. Okay, so just to give everybody a reference point, I think you well aware, HALL-WHITAKER here, and we're dealing with the Kernwood down here. So how did we get here? Back in 2017, there was a bridge inspection that was done, and as a result of that inspection, MassDOT conducted a bridge rating. As a result of that bridge rating, some fairly hefty bridge restrictions or load restrictions were put into place in summer of 2018. In the winter of 2022, as part of the collaboration with VHB and their team getting ready for the Kernwood Avenue full replacement project, there was an assessment report that was completed that really identified the existing conditions on the bridge. And that assessment identified some areas that were in need of some rehabilitation. And as I believe Rob had said, one of our goals here in this rehabilitation project is to ensure that the Kernwood remains in service, safe, and reliable throughout the duration of the construction of the temporary bridge and until such time as the permanent bridge construction for Kernwood reaches a point where that bridge will be taken out of service. So we worked with H&H and our bridge preservation team in our Boston office during 2024 to develop the rehabilitation contract. And then in the summer and fall, that procurement took place and SPS was brought on board to start the construction that's been going on. So the existing conditions, as I said, the bridge is, as a result of that rating, some weight restrictions were put into place. It's currently posted for 10 tons, which limits access by heavy vehicles, emergency vehicles, school buses, and other larger vehicles. And the rehabilitation project, the goal of that is to focus on keeping the bridge in service. It's not meant to bring about significant improvement in the weight posting. It's more or less to keep the bridge working in a great, satisfactory manner that ensures it's going to be reliable until that larger replacement project comes to fruition. So just some photos showing the existing conditions and what we're focusing on. Picture on the left is showing the timber piles, some deterioration. That's the substructure elements that are supporting the bridge. In the middle, it's structural steel elements that are part of the superstructure for the bridge. And then this last picture on the right shows the steel grid deck that makes up the decking, the riding surface on the movable span. So some of the areas that we've been focusing on and showing some of the pre and current photos as we get going is picture on the left. Sorry about that. Picture on the left shows that area where we're going to be doing steel repairs, and the picture on the right shows the work that SPS has already done so far, doing what we call the surface preparation, where they'll go in and clean and prime that steel repair and get it ready for the ultimate steel repairs, which will consist of bolting on replacement steel to beef up the structural capacity of that member. Similarly, the timber piles showing the existing deterioration on the left, and then what you see on the right is it's a jacketed pile repair. So it's basically a John, what's the name of the material for the jacket? Fiberglass. Thank you. Fiberglass jacket that then cementous grout is pumped into. Sometimes in some cases, there'll be reinforcing steel that's added to those. But that's a permanent type of repair. That jacket stays in place. As you can see, they're out there in the water. This picture was actually taken a couple of weeks ago during some very frigid weather. So I know SPS has been working hard at this project since it started, but encountering some tough conditions, but nonetheless continuing to forge on. So the project scope is, as I mentioned, the design was initiated in 2023, and it's intended to extend the bridge's service life. The overall value of the budget for the project is $12.9 million, and the general scope includes structural steel repairs on the approach spans and the movable span, substructure repairs to those timber pile foundations, and then significant repairs to the mechanical and electrical systems that actually operate the bridge. So the impacts that many of you have seen thus far and are still to come. So a lot of the work that you're seeing out there right now is taking place during the day, during weekdays. Sometimes we'll use alternating one-way traffic, but for the most part, the work that has been going on thus far has been able to be done in large part by maintaining two-way traffic. There will be some nighttime operations that'll be kicking up in the spring when we get into those structural steel repairs. And there has been some areas of intermittent night work that have been taking place throughout the course of the project, but thus far fairly infrequently. The contract does provide a full closure of the bridge for some work items that simply cannot be done without the bridge being closed to vehicular traffic. That closure period right now is expected to occur sometime in this summer. It is expected at this point through scheduling that we've been working through. Duration is targeted at about 6 weeks. That's kind of a best case scenario. It could expand a little bit, but that's what we're focusing on is a 6-week duration. And in response to some comments and questions from Mayor Cahill and others during a recent briefing, we're working with SPS and their material suppliers to see if it might be feasible to advance that closure period to a little earlier than the summertime. But that is still a work in progress, and we do not have a known outcome of that. A lot of this work, as I said, requires some specialized material that has some long fabrication times. There's also work that SPS needs to do in order to get ready to complete those work activities. So we'll report back to Mayor Cahill and the other stakeholders once that review concludes. But as I said, right now it's in motion. It's being considered. Actually, I want to go back one. And I just wanted to talk about also, too, is that we do have some intermittent channel closures which are affecting the navigational traffic that use the bridge. We've scheduled those around the time when there's the least amount of marine traffic during the winter periods. We have one that's ongoing. It's a second phase of a channel closure that commenced in January. The second phase is ongoing. It started in January 26th and will continue through February 8th. And there may be additional channel closures likely throughout the course of the winter. Those are coordinated with the Coast Guard and the local harbor masters. And those are primarily associated with doing the upgrades and repairs to the mechanical and electrical systems that simply once you start pulling those apart and doing the work associated with replacing or repairing them, the bridge just isn't able to be operated. And I did want to backtrack just during that closure period in the summer, or when we get to that closure period, there's little impact to marine traffic during that time. The closure would affect vehicular traffic, but marine traffic would largely be unaffected. So as I said, daytime operations were limited to alternating one way where it's necessary, but many times we've been fortunate to be able to do the work maintaining two-way traffic. If we do get into a nighttime operations where it's necessary to close the bridge, we would have a formal signed detour that would be in place during the overnight hours, largely between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. When we do get to the continuous roadway closure, the bridge will be closed with vehicles using that formal signed detour route throughout the duration period. And bicyclists and pedestrians that are impacted by any of these closures will have alternate route options, including the formal signed route, but we recognize that it's a challenging area for pedestrians and bicyclists to navigate around. This just is kind of a schematic that shows the detour map when it's used either during an overnight closure or during that continuous closure that I mentioned. As I said, we're somewhat boxed in by river crossings that are available. So on the right to the east, it's over to Beverly Salem Bridge, and to the west, it's towards 128 on Liberty Street. And with that, I just wanted to follow up with the schedule. We advertised the bids for this project in early March of 2024. It was a fairly rapid procurement with a contract awarded in May and the contract notice to proceed in May. The physical work started in fall of 2024, and we expect the contract to wrap up towards the end of this year in November. And with that, Rob, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Paul. So at this point, the update is complete, but we'd like to open things up to some questions. But as is tradition, we would like to ask elected officials if they have any questions first. Mayor Cahill, did you want to speak, or you're all set? Okay. Is there any other elected officials that? Councilor Rotundi, how are you tonight?
A few questions. We have 4 projects basically going on in Ryle side. I just had some questions sent to me by some neighbors who could not come tonight.
Sure.
So I know one of the questions was asked, the staging areas specifically to the temporary bridge, the construction, how those vehicles will be coming, whether it be through Bridge Street or McPherson Drive. I don't know if you have a plan, or at least be mindful of how that may be happening. We've been going through the Bridge Street project the last year. Fortunately, with the mayor's help and with the contractor and the bi-weekly meetings that we were having, we were able to keep the neighbors informed, and I'm hoping we can continue that relationship as this HALL-WHITAKER temporary bridge is done. But I know, like I said, a lot of concerns are with the staging of the truck and the entrance of the construction vehicles. That's one question. Would you like me to go?
Yeah, maybe we'll take that one first. So the platform that was described, I think that it'll be a major construction staging area. The bridge is closed, so there is some room on either side of the bridge for staging as well. As far as truck access, I think that there will be trucks coming in from both directions.
Okay, thank you. Specifically to that neighborhood that will be affected by the temporary bridge, 2 questions and concerns are the pest mitigation. Will there be a plan in place, especially the Riverview Folger Ave neighborhood? They've been dealing with it, but they know that with any construction project, it tends to disturb various habitats. So there's some concerns in making sure that there is some sort of a pest management program in place for that.
I could say that that's standard spec for our project, so there'll be rodent control.
And then in regards to the piling you were speaking of, there are some neighbors along that area. Whether it can be prevented or not, would there be some way of trying to mitigate the noise, or maybe even, is it going to be doing during construction time during the day? So they're concerned about the noise mitigation piece of that?
Right now, I don't think we have any nighttime work planned at all, so I think all the noise will be during the day.
Okay. And then this is the unknown question that keeps coming to me, especially the past few days. The funding issue. We've known that the federal administration, where things keep changing on a daily basis. Is this going to affect any of these 3 projects? How is the funding coming in? And I don't know if you even have that answer yourself, because it's continued. But
I think Paul has an update for that, right, Paul?
Yeah, Councillor, thank you. And actually, this was a question that Mayor Cahill had raised earlier today as well with MassDOT, because I think he had also received some inquiries as well. So great question. What I can say is that, MassDOT, we're continuing to monitor that situation at the federal level. As you mentioned, it's evolving. But we do and have remained and will continue to remain in constant contact with our federal partners at the Federal Highway Administration, just to kind of get their pulse on the matter and also glean any information that they can provide. But what I will say is that, this team's charge on all 3 of the projects is to continue to get them ready so that as soon as possible, so that they are ready to be advertised. And, one of the things that is important to note is that the federal funding programs that are related to road and bridge programs, they've been in existence for many, many years. So it's not a new program. It's something that is routinely reauthorized and funded as a matter of course to do public works projects across the nation. So in terms of that, we're going to just continue to monitor things, but at this point, we have no reason to believe that these projects are not going to proceed in the fashion that we've laid them out, and we're going to continue to get them ready to do so.
Thank you. And I do have one final question. I apologize for the many questions, but I want to make sure they're getting answered.
That's why we're here.
the detour in regards to the Kernwood Bridge project that's going to happen, whether it be spring or the summertime. I know you said you'll have the detour signs out in periodic areas. I just want to make sure that the state's aware at the, having it up at the Bridge Street area, even down by Kernwood, North Street and Salem. I mean, we're looking further out on that, where these detour signs are going to be, because I know when the bridge would malfunction and it would be shut down immediately, what would happen is the neighbors that are on Winthrop Ave or on Kernwood, you get down and you're banging a U and you're speeding up, and so now it becomes a concern of speed and safety. So I just want to make sure that we're hitting all of those areas going further outward.
Yep, another great point, Councilor, and I apologize. I know when we last spoke, I said I'd get you the detour plan for that closure period, so I will follow up and get that to you. The other thing that's a little bit different about, when we have had issues in the past where we've closed on an emergency basis, is this will be a planned type of closure, so we'll be able to get that much more formal package of a suite of signage, whether it be message boards, static signs and the like, out, along with a little bit more robust outreach program with both cities as well as our communications groups to let folks know when and how things are happening. The other thing that is something that we can do is work with the mapping companies that will actually show the bridge out of service, so that if anybody that is maybe not familiar with the area is trying to get in and around that area, the Google or Waze or anything like that will show that bridge being closed, and will route them in an appropriate manner so it doesn't unnecessarily bring them down to the bridge.
Thank you very much. Thank you for taking my questions and the answers.
Thanks for the questions. Any other elected officials? Okay. I don't see any, so why don't we open it up to everyone. If you have a question, please come on up to the mic. If you could identify yourself and before you ask your question.
Karen Schwartz, Giles Ave. So my question is about the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. How many bridges did MassDOT close following that in 2021?
I don't have an answer to that for you, ma'am. The focus of this is on these 4 bridges tonight.
Okay.
I can take your information and follow up with you. We can certainly do that, but I'm sorry, I just don't have that information tonight.
I guess I'm responding to, what sounds like confidence about the funding, because as I understood it, 150 bridges were closed after that act was passed in 2021, and maybe a little more than half have been rebuilt. So how is your funding attached to that act?
I don't have information specific to that particular aspect. I'm not in a position to answer you tonight on that. I can take your question back.
Yeah, funding questions, Jess, we could get back to you for that, but that's a really specific question that we don't have answers to tonight.
Could you offer contact info from the person in your office that is more closely involved in that?
I can certainly take your contact info and get you in touch with somebody who can help you answer that question, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Hi, Joyce Johnston, Livingston Ave. A couple of questions. One thing that concerns me is the height of the HALL-WHITAKER, because about a year ago we had a major storm and the water was basically up to the bottom of the bridge. And that's going to continue to happen and only get worse. So are we increasing the height of the bridge?
Yes, we are. Nick, do you want to get into the specifics of how you're determining the vertical clearance?
Sure. So we're designing for future sea level rise at both Kernwood and Bridge Street. Kernwood, we have a much longer, what I call a runway on each bridge approach, so that we can increase the height. It's already starting much higher than Bridge Street. Bridge Street has the constraints of tying down at River Street, which has behind it property and railroad, so we have a constraint there, and then we have the constraint of the homes on the other side. But even with that, we're going to be raising the underside of the bridge on the order of 6 feet at the channel. and also ramping up at both approaches. Our 25% design still allows us to do that and maintain Margin Street open as currently prepared.
Super. Okay, the other question was, again, to rerouting and detours, particularly on Livingston, where I am. We have low-hanging wires with houses, bungalows basically very close to the street. And when you have large trucks come up the street, they pull the wires out of the houses. And when the other bridge was done, the wires out of my house were pulled out 3 times in one day. So can we not have large trucks rerouted up Livingston Avenue? At least in one direction, because it's all coming down on one side of the street.
As far as, I don't know if you're talking about during construction or on a permanent basis.
During construction.
Okay, I think we can certainly look at that, but I also know that, in terms of, that would be for the construction vehicles, because right now, both Kernwood and HALL-WHITAKER, before it was closed, both had significant weight restrictions on it, so that there weren't any large trucks coming down. But
even like an 18-wheeler who was diverted would come up and pull the wires out, and that happened not just at my house, at 2 other houses, and it was just a constant thing. It was crazy.
You said Livingston, right?
On Livingston.
Livingston, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for letting us know that. We have that noted. Go ahead.
Ruel Liebert, 201 Elliott Street. I have a longer range question about the permanent bridges. Given the knowledge from all the inspections and knowledge of what the maintenance schedules on both those bridges have been, you have an idea what the lifetime was of those 2 bridges. And my question is, with newer construction materials and newer designs, hopefully more advanced ones, what do you expect the lifetime of the new permanent bridges to be, and how much of an enhancement is that over the lifetime of the previous 2?
We designed through a 75-year lifespan.
How much of an enhancement is that over the existing lifetime of the regional bridges?
You know what? I don't know the age of the bridges offhand.
120 years? So the original ones are around 120 years. So the new ones you expect to add 75 years, or you giving, or a total of 75 years? Is it a reduction in life or a longer life?
We designed to a 75-year lifespan. That's not saying that it'll only last 75, but that would certainly be the minimum. With maintenance projects, that life could definitely be extended.
Have you found defects in the maintenance schedules that in the existing bridges that could have extended their lifetime that could be corrected on a new bridge?
I think we're always trying to advance technologies. I would say that especially the movable bridges have been advanced, immensely, that technology, and I would expect that they would require less maintenance.
That's a different question. Was the maintenance that was done on those existing bridges sufficient at the technology level they were at? And could one have a different approach to the maintenance schedules that would enhance the bridges? A better way of asking the question.
I think that we have a pretty robust maintenance schedule, and I think that we'll continue with that robust maintenance schedule.
All right, thank you.
Just to add to that too is that the bridges, all the bridges are inspected on a regular frequency, biannually at a minimum, sometimes more frequently depending on condition. And as a result of those inspections, if there are maintenance issues, significant maintenance issues that are flagged, we try and work those into either a standalone maintenance contract or a routine maintenance contract, so that we're keeping the bridges in the condition that we want them to. As far as the movable bridges, there's regular routine maintenance that's built into our annual drawbridge operation contracts that's focused on the electrical and mechanical elements of the bridge, lubrication of parts, things like that, to ensure that they're wearing properly.
Yes, Bruce Dias, last name D-Y-A-S. Beverly Ryleside resident. On the topic of lifetime of bridges, the temporary bridge, and looking at the milestones that were identified, if for some reason, funding or other reasons, unknowns, that what could that temporary bridge be extended?
Sure. So you're asking the lifespan of a temporary bridge, right? Nick, could you answer that question, please?
Yes, a new prefabricated panel bridge of a similar style is on the order of 35 to 40 year lifespan, with proper maintenance, upkeep, inspections as well.
Great question. Thank you. Go ahead.
How are you? Al DiLorenzo on Kernwood Ave. You mentioned getting ready for the temporary bridge, the HALL-WHITAKER Bridge. There's a utility contract. Will that what would that do to pedestrian access to that bridge?
So it's already active. It actually started in the fall,
Okay.
and is maintaining the southern sidewalk. Why the northern sidewalk is out of service is because there's maintenance being done to maintain the northern sidewalk, unrelated to the utility contract that's ongoing right now.
Okay.
But pedestrian access is being maintained as of this evening. I walked over it, and there were several commuters walking over it as well.
I mean, will pedestrian access always be there until the temporary bridge?
Correct.
Okay.
Pedestrian access, bicycle access will be maintained up until the day that we put both
Excellent.
on
All right.
the new bridge.
Thank you.
Hi, Jen Nelson, Kernwood Ave. In regards to the Kernwood Bridge and the construction, there's going to be a lot of construction, traffic up and down with the trucks that are going to be building it and whatnot. I'm just wondering, when you get close to the completion, are you going to be doing any road repair on Kernwood? It's used all the time, and it's starting to show its wear and tear, but I'm assuming that with all the construction vehicles going up and down, I was wondering if you're going to be doing any repaving or whatnot, curbs that we have to look forward to.
Are you referring to the current work that's going on there, or are you talking about as part of the larger replacement project?
As part of the larger, because there's going to be a lot of construction vehicles going up and down once they start the Kernwood Bridge, either taking it down or putting it back up. I'm just wondering at the end, as part of the, the completion of it, to take care of the road, making that sound as well.
Yeah, I know as part of just to speak to the current rehabilitation work, all the approach spans and the movable span, that's all new surface. So that'll be in good shape. As far as the replacement project, I'll let Nick just speak to that.
Our limits of work for the Kernwood project as they currently stand, that's not to say that they couldn't be extended with coordination with Salem and Beverly. It's to the entrance to the Kernwood Country Club on the south side, and it's to the first or second intersection of that, I can't think of the name of the street, on the north side, on the Beverly side. But like I said, Rob, that's something that we can definitely coordinate through 25% design with both Beverly and Salem, and potentially something like the Bridge Street rehabilitation, which is a separate contract, right?
So nothing like Bridge Street to the bridge. It's not going to be a new paved job or anything.
Are you talking Kernwood or Bridge Street?
Kernwood.
Kernwood. So it would be new pavement, full depth pavement construction within our limits of work. I don't have a graphic to show you. Okay. But I can show you something. I probably have it on my computer. I can show you after the meeting if you'd like.
No, as long as they're just going to make it smooth and prepared. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Hannah Bowen on Rantoul Street and a city councilor at large. Two questions, and they may also be a question to the mayor's team. But first, I think the last time we were here in this format, there were still some alternatives being explored for mitigating impacts on marine traffic, on exact siting. So just want to confirm that there are not other design options still out there for folks who haven't seen an update between now and this, that it seems like the designs are getting to that 25% stage or set, and moving from here?
Temporary bridge or permanent?
All of the above.
So temporary is final. So what we showed tonight is the final design. We haven't even received the 25% submission, but there might be some minor changes through the design development, but we'll be here at design public hearing after we receive that 25% submission to show the public what it looks like.
Great, thanks. And then the second question is just, since the bridge has been closed, I know we've partnered with MassDOT to get funding for some of the traffic mitigation on Route 62 in particular, and for increased traffic enforcement. So just curious how that's been going, and if additional measures are planned, either just to mitigate what we're seeing as people having adapted their behavior over time, and with additional closures expected in the summer on the Kernwood Bridge to kind of get ahead of additional traffic impacts. And that's the one that I don't know if there's...
I can't speak to enforcement, but I think that there hasn't been any changes to the current detour or anything, right, Paul?
No, not at all. But obviously, if there's something specific that the city is advocating for, we're happy to have a conversation. I just, there's regular progress, biweekly progress meetings on the Bridge Street project, reconstruction project, as well as the Kernwood rehabilitation project, and obviously we have a close working relationship with Mayor Cahill and his staff. So if there's something that the city is interested in having a discussion on, we're certainly receptive to that discussion.
Great, thank you. I mostly still hear about the timing of the lights on Elliott and backups, so didn't know if there were learnings from the MassDOT side for that. But.
What was the location?
Really all of 62, that set of lights, and the timings I know were adjusted thanks to some funding from MassDOT. So wondered if there were additional conversations or plans there.
Thank you.
How you doing? Clark Hall, Kernwood Ave. So currently, when there's a high tide and the sewer drains, I actually live right on the bridge. The sewer drains almost can't empty out, and I'm concerned that when you change the pitch of the bridge, and with the downhill slope the way it is now, the drains can't drain because the tide is right there, and as the tides get higher, I just want to know if they've addressed that.
I could simply say yes, and we'll have a full drainage program as part of the bridge replacement.
Currently, where the drain is only got probably 6 inches before it won't be able to drain anymore.
Yeah, we'll account for that. Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Hi, I'm Peter Thomas. I'm from Beverly. Could you follow up a little on the Coast Guard permit? And I take it the Coast Guard permit really only applies to the temporary bridge?
That's correct. So, as you know, the bridge is going to be fixed. So we've been working with the Coast Guard to allow for a fixed bridge, and we've made accommodations for the Bass Haven Yacht Club, who is basically all the boaters that need openings there. And so that's essentially what they're permitting. That the channel and the both the vertical and horizontal clearance stay right, the location stays the same, and they're agreeing to allow us to build a temporary fixed bridge.
Hi, Greg Nowak, Livingston Ave. Quick question on the rehabilitation of the Kernwood. Are there any plans to redo the decking surface? Not talking about the steel grating, because although it looked pretty bad in the photos, feels pretty good when you drive over it. It's everything else that feels kind of like the earthquake we had the other day. Thank you.
So John Lee or my friends from H&H, am I right in saying that the approach span's new surface and the deck surface on the movable span is that's going to be replaced in its entirety? So as part of the rehabilitation project. So I believe the answer to your question is yes.
Kyle Retallick, Elliott Street, Ryle Side. I was just wondering when the bid's going to go out for the Bridge Street Bridge, and how long are you going to put it out to bid? And when the contract does get landed, is there a firm overseeing the contractor working on a daily basis, weekly, bi-weekly, and who keeps them in check and in line to make sure things make the deadlines?
You want to take that, Nick?
So our ad date is 2/22, so February 22nd. We're trying to do better than our typical bid date, so we're going 45 days beyond February 22nd, so you're bidding sometime in, what's that put us, April? And then we have also better than usual 115 days from advertised to NTP, notice to proceed for the contractor, puts you around June. So it gets you right at the start of the construction season. It gets you right at the start of the lift of the time of year restriction. So timing wise, we're right in the sweet spot with the way that it all worked out with the coordination with the permitting agencies in the city. As far as overseeing goes, we will be hired, VHB, to continue in construction phase services to support MassDOT, and MassDOT will have at least one full-time resident on site with a contractor observing the work for compliance and conformance with VHB at the ready should any issues arise. Does that answer your question?
Any other questions?
Hi, my name is Steve Bissell. I live on Ashton Street in Ryle Side. I think just a couple of clarifications on the young lady that was talking about the approach from Bridge Street on Kernwood down to Kernwood. I think her question was more from where the end of the bridge is, where you're going to replace, from there up, the road is going to be worn and torn over the next number of years. So she's looking for, a question is, will that some form of funding be available for fixing that upper area later on? I think that was her
No, understood. And
Okay.
I think that Nick was trying to describe the extent of our limit of work and how far the paving would go. Right now, the limit of work does not extend all the way to Bridge Street.
I know it doesn't. It probably extends to Upland, probably, on the Beverly side. The other question for clarification was the gentleman that was talking about the existing Kernwood and how rough it is right now, and it's like the earthquake wasn't that bad. It's the surface, not the movable surface. It's the surface that is permanent, that is wood covered right now, that has pavement that's missing all over the place. I guess the question really was, is there going to be some sort of maintenance on that so that we're not driving over rut holes all the time for the next number of years? Is that part of that maintenance project that's going on? Not the movable area, the permanent area that's fixed.
Yeah, the answer to that is yes.
Okay.
I termed it as the approach spans. I should have just said, the entire bridge structure itself, the wearing surface, is scheduled to be replaced.
Okay. And my other question that I had was, this proposal here is for the temporary bridge project. It says the estimated cost is $33 million. Is that for the temporary bridge?
Yes.
Or is that's just for the temporary bridge?
That's right.
Okay. I have a question for the mayor too. Does the city own a level? Does the city own a level? Because if you drive up Bridge Street right now, those nice new light poles that you guys are putting in, they're all crooked. They're all crooked. So somebody who puts them in should use a level. If they don't, I can lend you one because I have a couple of them. So please let your guys know that when they put them in, they should put them in correctly at the start. That's all. Thank you.
Sir, can I just ask a clarifying question? Are you talking about new highway lighting poles installed on as part of Bridge Street, as part of the
Bridge
active
Street,
reconstruction?
Yes. They put new light poles in. They're beautiful black, beautiful poles. But they're not plumb.
Okay.
They're
No, we'll take a look at that, and I want to take the pressure off the mayor on that. That's our project that we're building, we're overseeing. So thank you for the comment, and I'll have our staff follow up on that.
Okay, and like I said, if you need a level, I got one.
I'll meet you out there.
Robert Dubois, Western Ave. This is just a quickie. I was wondering if this presentation will be available for download anywhere so that we can refer to it in the future if we want to, or unless you covered that already and I missed it somehow.
Yeah, it'll be available. We'll post it to the MassDOT site, and we'll also provide it to the mayor so he can have it posted on the town.
Perfect.
Right, yeah, we'll provide it to you. I think we need to make it accessible. Once we finish that, we'll get it over to you. Any other questions? Okay, well, appreciate everybody's coming out tonight. And this presentation is officially closed. Thank you.